MMA Rants and Raves, Fedor Emelianenko versus Fabricio Werdum, post-fight review. Guys, I really don't know what to say. I'm still in total shock. I've been getting a lot of comments. I appreciate them. And trust me, I'm just as shocked as you are, if not more. I just couldn't believe it, especially how the fight started and the way it ended. It was like going from an emotional high, an extreme emotional high, to this sudden crash and total shock. I mean, just look at the crowd. The crowd was going nuts. They had the same feeling, and then they were just silent. It was like a home crowd. That's how popular he is already. He was in the United States, and the way they were cheering for him, it was just amazing. It was like you see your home team leading and then losing. And you always see the same thing, how it gets silent. And that's how it was. But anyway, you know, I would like to talk about it because there's a few things that I've seen here that I have not heard been mentioned. Of course, the fight just happened yesterday, but I'm just not in the mood of watching these press conferences. I mean, I just don't want to see it. And I would like to mention a few things. So let's talk about the fight. Now, you saw the beginning of the fight. Fedor was just looking amazing. I mean, he does what he always does. He is fearless. Always takes the center of the octagon, always attacks. He moves his feet very quickly. He moves his head very quickly. He's like stalking, and he's looking for an opening, trying to get inside, looking for an opportunity. And then he throws this wicked combination. And guys, let me tell you something. 27 seconds into that fight, he dropped Werdum like a sack of potatoes. It was a wicked combination. Has never been done before. This guy has never been knocked down that quickly. I mean, he's an accomplished fighter. And Fedor smelled blood. And that's just what Fedor does. He smells blood and he goes for the kill. So he went down, and that was a good idea to go down with him. But Werdum was not as hurt as we all thought he was. And of course, as Fedor thought he was. Fedor thought he was really hurt. So if you really hurt a guy, you go down, you ground and pound, look for a submission, soften him up. It's easier because he's hurt, but he wasn't. And not only was he trying to regain his composure from getting hit, he was actually on the offensive. He was looking for a spot to get on a submission. Now, if you watch the fight closely, guys, watch it closely, you'll notice that the first attempt of Werdum to get Fedor into a submission was foiled. Fedor got out of it. He pulled out of that initial armbar attempt. But then, what Werdum did, and let me tell you, he's so good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has that spiderweb trap. And what I mean is a guillotine choke. He has long legs, he's a tall guy, and he was able to grab Fedor's head with one of those tentacles, if you may, like an octopus, and then get the other one on. And then he was trying to shift from armbar to triangle because he was using his legs to secure him to try to get either submission or maybe even both, the way it seemed. And that's where Fedor got into trouble. The big mistake that Fedor made in this fight was that he saw that Werdum was not hurt, and he was very much alert. It was early, very early, seconds in to the first round. And when you're dealing with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, especially a cardio machine like Werdum, this is a guy who does not get tired in fights. He has a lot of cardio, he's in great shape, and when you have two guys, their skin is nice and dry, and you can get a submission on a lot easier than when guys are sweaty much later on in the fight. That is not a good idea to go on the ground with them, especially if the guy isn't hurt. When Fedor got out of that first attempt, if you watch the fight, guys, he should have gotten up and motioned to the ref to stand up again. You know why I say this? Watch the Nogueira fights. Let me tell you, if there's ever a carbon copy of Minotauro Nogueira, it's Fabricio Werdum. These guys are exactly the same. They're both heavyweights, top of their game of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All right, their striking is average. It's okay. I think Werdum has better leg kicks. He's shown that, especially against Dos Santos before that knockout happened. He showed some very good, crisp leg kicks. And, you know, you notice Fedor actually got on the ground with Nogueira. But he saw when the thing is getting too hairy, you know, he's trying to get on submission attempts, Fedor would just power out of it, get up, and then motion to the ref to stand it up again. And that's what he should have done here. because you don't get on top of a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy when he's full of composure like that, especially when you see he's not hurt. He should have done what he did with Nogueira. You know, you do a little bit, but get up right away and power out of it. That's one thing that I saw. Now here's another point that I want to bring up as well. If you notice Fedor's last 3 fights, he has attacked his opponents at their strong points. Look at the past 3 fights. We have Rogers, Arlovsky, and Sylvia. These guys are all strikers. They don't go to the ground. Okay? What happened in those fights? Arlovsky, knockout. You have Tim Sylvia, right? He was striking with him. He was not trying to grapple when he started the fight. Of course, he ended it with a submission, but the fight was really over at that point anyway. And then, of course, Rogers. You know, here's a guy, the guy was coming at 10-0, he's knocking everybody out, and he was basically trying to stand up with this guy and try to strike with him. He was attacking people at their strong points, and he did the same with Werdum. He was trying to attack him at a strong point. Look how this fight started, guys. 27 seconds into the fight, he dropped him like a sack of potatoes. Striking, you saw it with Dos Santos, okay? And you even saw it with Bigfoot Silva. You know, Bigfoot Silva was winning that first round, and he hit Werdum plenty of time. It's just that Silva doesn't hit that hard. He's not a high power striker. He's a talented striker, but he doesn't have that kind of power like a Fedor has or Dos Santos. Fedor could have won this fight if he just would have exploited the opponent's weak point. Why get on the ground with this guy if you can own him striking? And here's the point. Striking holds precedence to a ground game. We know that. The rules are that the fight must stand up. If one opponent wants it to stand up, or any opponent, the ref forces the fight to stand up again. So basically, striking holds precedence over ground game. Fedor could have motioned to the ref the entire fight to continuously stand this up every time Werdum went to the ground. You know, there's no stalemate with this. You can't see Werdum doing his jiu-jitsu, kicking at the legs of his opponent while you have a guy who's standing over him. You're not going to have that. But what happened? You basically saw Fedor the second time, and I'll say it again. The first time he broke out of it, and when he broke out of it, he should have gotten him, and he didn't. And that, in my opinion, was a mistake. Now, here's another point I want to bring up, and I hope I'm wrong. There was something I saw with Fedor that worried me. Usually he powers out of those submissions even before they're latched on. I saw it in the Babalu fight, in the Nogueira fights. All the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys that he's fought, he powers out of those submissions before they have a chance to get on, and he goes back to his feet, and he did not do that. He didn't look quick enough to get out of those submissions, and that's what concerned me about this guy. Maybe it was his conditioning, it was fatigue, and then of course it could just be a mistake. That's what it was. That was the mistake. Like I just mentioned, it was the second attempt. He should have just stood up, and he did not do that. And that's the way it ended, you know. And of course I've been hearing reports, maybe this is related, maybe not, I hope not, of course, that he's considering running for governor, and he's considering retirement. I think this came out in some Russian newspaper. Now this was going on before the fight, so I really don't know what this was about, but it's strict speculation, you know. A lot of fighters are not candid about this stuff, or you just don't know what the situation is. Here's the bottom line, guys. How much longer could have this gone on? I mean, we have DiMaggio's streak. Well, Fedor's streak just may never be broken. I mean, this guy fought over 30 fights and didn't lose. And it finally happened. And in my opinion, he's still the greatest mixed martial artist in history. I don't care what anybody says. And you know why I say that? Let's look at the best in the world. Who's the best in the world? The GSPs, the BJ Penns, the Anderson Silvas, the Randy Couture's. You could throw Brock Lesnar in there if you want. Frank Mir, Nogueira, Krokop. Are these the best in the world ever? Do you agree with me on that? Shogun, Machida, they've all lost. The best in the world lose. It just happens. You can't say he's not the best because he's lost. It happens. You know, the guy is human after all. Anyway, that's the way I see it, guys. It's very disappointing to see, but it happened, and you just gotta move on. If you've been following this guy, you're a big fan of him. Hopefully we'll see him again. He'll come back. That'll be quite interesting. So let's hope and wait. We'll see what happens. I'd like to know how you feel about the situation. Feel free to leave your comments, rate this video, and subscribe. And thank you for tuning in.